Okay, welcome. To those of you that saw me on the last session, I ran from one room to another, one virtual room to another. Sorry for being a few minutes late, guys. We're starting this 1 or 2 minutes over time. But I wanted to welcome you guys to the next product showcase. This is a unique session at TMF Week that's focused on giving you guys some insight into how some of the processes, some of the best practices that are being talked about during TMF Week can be implemented in practice within an eTMF platform. Today, I'm joined by two of my favorite people, Aviv Lubel, who's an account executive at Montreal, and Lindsay Kerwan, who's our eTMF services coordinator and works in our eTMF services team. My name is Oliver Pierce, Director of Commercialization, and I'm your host for today. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Aviv and Lindsay to kick off today's session. If you guys have questions throughout, please throw them in. If we have time at the end, we will try and get to them. Lindsay, Aviv, it's all yours.
Thank you, Oliver, for that great introduction. And remember, this session is recorded, Oliver, so the fact that I'm your favorite is now official record. But I digress. One of the questions that we often get from our customer community, and this was touched upon this morning in the session that we had, was, how do you become best friends with the CRO that you're working with? And there's a few points that you need to take into account. The first is that, the relationship between the sponsor and the CRO really has to be strategic. It can't be something that is transactional. You guys are going to be in it for the long run. And because you're really in it for the long run, you want to make sure that you can easily work together as partners. So you want to reduce any obstacle that you have towards collaboration between the different stakeholders that are going to be working on the eTMF. And one of the ways that you can increase that collaboration and cooperation is by having access to actionable intelligence, something that allows both groups to be proactive as opposed to reactive when it comes to remediation of certain issues or circumstances. And you can do that by really maximizing your visibility, but it's not just maintaining that visibility, but it's the ability to really demonstrate that visibility and that sponsor oversight of the TMF. So those are all important components that an eTMF is going to provide you in terms of really reinforcing that relationship between the sponsor and the CRO. And ultimately, what you want to give both parties is as much control as possible over their respective responsibilities when it comes to the TMF management. But control is important from a sponsor's perspective for a very good reason. And Lindsay, if you'll go to the next slide, please. Essentially, it's when the inspector comes knocking. The inspector is not going to be knocking on the CRO's door. The inspector is not going to come knocking on your partner's door or other vendors that you're working with. They're going to be knocking on your door, the sponsor's door. So it is really, really, really important to be able to demonstrate that oversight. And what do we mean by demonstrating that oversight? And Lindsay, I'll hand it off to you to kind of give us a little bit more detail on that. You're on mute, Lindsay. It wasn't me this time.
She's having a bit of trouble. She's just having a bit of trouble unmuting herself. We'll give her a second.
So Oliver, there you go. She's back on. Nope, no, she's not.
No, we don't hear you.
Lindsay, would you say this is going according to plan? So while we're waiting for Lindsay to get her audio back, Oliver, any insight that you have on the oversight aspect of that vendor, of that sponsor and CRO relationship?
No, Lindsay, we don't hear you. Okay, Lindsay's going to leave and come back.
So I can cover that.
Lesson learned.
Oliver, do you have access?
Don't mute yourself. I do not, unfortunately. Let me just bring that back up. Let's have a look here.
This is the beauty.
It wouldn't be a virtual meeting without a hiccup, right?
That's right.
And it's in PowerPoint. That's the issue. So let's see if we can get that back on the screen. So let's talk a little bit about what TMF oversight is. So when we think about TMF oversight, It's checking the performance or evaluating the performance of the work that's being conducted. It's evaluating trends and issues that may be impacting our ability to maintain the health of a TMF. It's documenting issues and remediations. What do we need to do? Are we tracking anomalies that may be happening, issues on documents? Being aware of problems sooner and being able to mitigate them, right? Being proactive versus reactive. And then, of course, supporting a continuous status of inspection readiness so that if that inspector does come knocking, as Aviv was mentioning, that we are ready to do so. And let's see if Lindsay can speak. Can you speak, Lindsay?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
We
Okay. The TMF gods came through. Amazing. So
All right,
I'll
Lindsay,
try.
I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay, great. Thanks, Oliver. I will start sharing mine. Awesome. So we're today what we're going to take a look at is the TMF from a sponsor perspective. So if you're here as a CRO, no worries. There's something in this demo for you as well, because we'll go through an overview of the navigator and any of those essential things that you will be checking to ensure that your TMF is inspection ready. So just give me a sec and I will begin sharing. Fingers crossed. Yes. Awesome. Okay. So you should be able to see my screen right now. We're looking at Montrium's eTMF Navigator. Now, this is a business intelligence tool. And you can see here that we have some real-time dashboards, and they're showing some key health metrics across the entire study. So we have a completeness overview right here, and then to the right of that, we have a timeliness graph as well. Below that, we have an artifacts table that's showing us all of the documents that have already been uploaded into my study, but also any of the placeholders for the expected and missing documents like we saw in yesterday's showcase as well. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can use this navigator to get more information. You can use filters across the My Trial view where we have all of the different countries that are participating in the trial. We can expand those countries to see the sites and even see the contacts associated to those sites as well. But if you're coming here, if you have more knowledge with the TMF reference model, if that's what you're used to, you can also navigate over to the TMF reference model view where we have all of the 11 different process zones. We can also expand those process zones to see the sections and also see the artifacts as well below those. So what's really powerful about this tool is that we can search and we can filter across the navigator on pretty much anything that you're seeing on the screen. So that searching and filtering is very, very important in your TMF. Now, the first metric that we're going to take a look at and talk about a little bit more detail is the completeness. So what we're seeing here is a percentage completeness. This is showing us how complete our TMF is. And then to the left of that, we're seeing the 5 main document statuses that the system is tracking for us. Okay. Now, these statuses are key. Even if you are using the system in an active way where you're collaborating on documents, you'll drill down, you'll have information about the documents that are incomplete, maybe under revision. But even if you're using the system in a more passive way, where the system is being used as a repository tool, even having the data of final, expected, and missing is very important too. Now, as a sponsor, being able to access the TMF and have this information right in front of your eyes, anywhere, anytime, and real time is extremely important.
Lindsay, a quick question, and this is often asked by the prospects and the partners that we speak with, but how is that completeness percentage calculated? What is that metric based on?
Right. Yeah. So this completeness percentage that we're seeing here, so 7%, is calculated as the final number of final file documents over the total number of expected documents in the study. So, this percentage is quite low right now. So it might be that this study is in the early stages. But as you move on with your trial, as you come to the end of your trial, you're expecting that this completeness count would, of course, be up to 100%. So let's maybe take a look in a little bit more detail at the different statuses. So we have the final documents here. So these are the documents that have already reached the final status. They're stored in the system as records. So they may have been uploaded as final documents, or they may have already completed an entire document lifecycle. You then have documents that are under revision. These are ones that were once final but are now undergoing a review. So they're getting updated directly in the system. Then we have the documents that are incomplete. These are ones that were once final, these are ones that were uploaded into the system but are now undergoing some predefined workflows or document life cycles. So these could be anything from reviews, QCs, or even approvals, say with a digital signature. So depending on the document type, you would have predefined processes for that document type already set up in the system.
Another quick question for you, Lindsay, and the incomplete metric is one of my favorite metrics, but I'd love to hear, in your opinion, what makes that metric so powerful to the sponsor?
Well, seeing the documents that are incomplete means that they're going through a workflow, means that they're in a document lifecycle. So they're probably going through a review or a QC or even an approval. So knowing which steps those documents are at, and maybe identifying if there's any bottlenecks in the process as well, or if there's any issues with individuals that are not completing their tasks, and that's why those documents are incomplete. Or even if those documents, say, have been rejected from a QC, maybe they have some QC issues. This is very important information that you can get from this incomplete status. So as a sponsor, you would have a reporting view, and it's also exportable as well. So you can take action on the issues that are identified during your review.
That's interesting. So ostensibly, this metric can be used to re-engineer and optimize certain processes that are potentially taking longer than they should, or as you said, facing some sort of, bottleneck in their completion.
Absolutely, yeah. So maybe if we take an example of documents that are going through 2 steps of QC. Let's say you're doing a 2-step QC across all of the documents in the TMF. And you might see that some of the documents or all the documents are getting stuck at one of the QC steps, maybe with one individual that doesn't have the time or is not completing the tasks. But identifying this bottleneck will then help you to see how you can change the process. Maybe you don't need to do an entire double-step QC across all of the documents in the TMF, but maybe just focus on those more riskier documents and only do 1 step of QC for the rest. So that will alleviate some of the burden on the QC and help speed up the processes as well.
Interesting.
Okay. So now we'll take a look at the expected and the missing documents. Now these ones are slightly different. I did say documents, but they're not actually documents. They're actually placeholders. So if you were in yesterday's session on the product showcase, you will have seen and heard a little bit more about where these placeholders are coming from. Yesterday we took a look at the eTMF plan, the index, and these placeholders are actually coming from that plan and are automatically generated for you based on it. So these placeholders can be filled. Like we saw yesterday, you can drag and drop documents on top of them. And you can even email documents over here into the system as well, into the staging area, or you can even start documents from templates. Now, if we go back to Oversight, knowing what is expected and what is missing, and identifying, if there's a lot of missing documents in the TMF, maybe which sites are associated to those documents or which countries, or even which documents in particular are affected is very, very important.
Yeah, and I would add that it's great to be able to have that information in real time as opposed to right before it impending audit or inspection. So, that's, again, a nice example of the actionable real-time intelligence that a tool like this will provide.
Absolutely. Yeah, knowing what documents you have in your TMF and what the trends are over time will really help you understanding what the filing practices are. So that kind of takes me over now to my timeliness graph, because this is showing us how timely the CRO has been with getting the documents into the TMF. So the idea here is that you would see a steady flow of documents coming in for a very active trial. So you would see constant uploads of documents. But if you see that there's not a lot of activity, or if you see that, you know, there's a very stiff peak right before you got that notice of inspection, or you have that audit coming up, it might signal that something is going on, and it might be that the inspector would see that as well and raise it as an issue. So knowing what the activity is in your TMF, knowing the filing practices and having that visibility could really help you then to rectify those issues and see those less desired trends and nip them in the bud right before they become a very big issue.
And Lindsay, you know, can you maybe elaborate a little bit on, you know, how you gather this data and how you actually use this data to nip it in the bud? It's one thing to see it, it's another one to convert it into something actionable.
Absolutely, yes. So we're not just seeing this timeliness graph on the whole entire study level. You can actually see this graph at any of the different levels. So for example, if I was to filter here even on a country or a site, we can see that timeliness graph is filtered down now, and we're seeing that filing practice directly at the site itself. So if the filing practices are very erratic or even non-existent, drilling down and having that way to drill down and have that information at that level is really great, because you can take action on it. Yeah. So then you can follow up with your CRO, you can follow up with the CRA. Why were the documents not being uploaded? For example, here at this site, I can see that I have a lot of missing documents. Why were they not collected, or why were they not put into the TMF if they are already available? So to talk more maybe about drilling down, there are a lot of areas, there may be areas in your TMF that you might deem, say, riskier. So perhaps higher recruiting sites, or sites with, you know, a lot of adverse events, or even particular documents that you've identified that are high risk based on your risk-based approach. So you want to drill down to different areas of the TMF to really see what's going on, not just for completeness and timeliness, but just to see where everything is at. So maybe let's take an example of a site first. So I'll just filter down here to my site at the Shum Hospital. And here we can see, when I'm filtered on this site, I can see all of the documents that are already uploaded. So I can see the ones in yellow are incomplete, the ones that are green are final. And even if I scroll down now, I can see all of those expected in blue and missing in red. So I have the information now of what's going on at this site, which documents have been collected, and which ones are still needed to be collected, or maybe are missing from any previous milestones. We can also take a look at individual documents. So that's just at the site, but maybe you have a particular document type in mind that you want to check on and make sure that is collected in your TMF. So I can use the TMF reference model view, and I can sort of drill down here and maybe take a look at the protocol signature pages, for example. So quite a critical document. You'll need to have these in your TMF. So I can see here, once I'm filtered on my protocol signature pages, all of the protocol signature pages that have already been collected. And if I scroll down further, even further, we have a lot of ones that are expected and missing. So why are they missing? Why have they not been collected in the TMF? It's very important to understand what's going on so that they can be collected and brought in. Another way that you can can drill down even further is actually to use this search artifacts box over here. So maybe if you're not familiar with the TMF reference model, maybe you have a particular document type in mind, or an ID, or even a title, or any other piece of metadata or information about a document. You can use this search box to search for it and drill down. So I'll put in here clinical trial agreement. I want to check that all of these have been collected. And when I hit on return, we can see all of the clinical trial agreements that have already been uploaded. But again, if I scroll down, I can see that they're expected and missing, but there's quite a few in here. So maybe I'll even use this filter that I have up here to check on only the missing clinical trial agreements. So you'll see in my view now that all the ones that had already been uploaded have been filtered out, and I'm really drilled down now to only seeing those missing ones. So again, I can check up with my CRO and see why these documents have not been brought in to my TMF. So just to summarize, there's lots of different ways to filter down. You can combine any of these filters in the navigator to really drill down and see those individual documents that you're looking for. And it really beats just using the Excel spreadsheet and the Control F function that you would typically use.
So, Lindsay, on that subject, can you give us kind of a real world example of how a sponsor was able to leverage this the granularity of the information, for their benefit, to make sure that everything is running smoothly?
Yeah, like it all comes back to that risk-based approach as well. So there may be those areas of the TMF that are deemed riskier. Let's say, like the example that we used earlier, like the protocol signature page. So you can really drill down to those different levels and evaluate, how critical it is for those documents to be in the TMF. How critical is it for them to be collected, and having that control over them, and then taking action based on those critical documents and putting in those preventative actions so that they do not happen again.
Excellent.
So I'll bring back up the last slide.
Yeah, and I'll take it over from here. So, essentially, what have we learned in today's session? First and foremost, oversight is not a nice to have. It's an absolute requirement. It's a regulatory requirement, so it has to be there. Someone mentioned in the comments that, they're not looking to be BFF with their CROs, and I would completely agree. It really comes down to having a highly collaborative engagement where everyone knows, where their responsibilities lie. And that's why having an oversight plan in place that really is going to define that activity, those activities, is going to be paramount in really strengthening that relationship, that strategic relationship that you're going to have with your CRO. Having a system like eTMF Connect that is user-friendly, that contains real-time dashboards and reporting, that is really going to alleviate a lot of the burden that is going to fall on the sponsor's shoulders, so that they can, at the end of the day, really spend more time running their trials as opposed to managing systems and relationships. So those are the high-level points that I hope you've gleaned from today's event, and I want to thank everyone for joining. I think we have a few minutes left. If anyone is interested in seeing how a system like this can help you in terms of maintaining that relationship with your sponsors, we'd love to hear with you. We'd love to walk you through precisely how a tool like this can help you out. And I think that does it. Are we opening it up for questions, Oliver?
I'll just to reiterate that if you're interested in seeing your use case in a demonstration, write "I'm interested" in the chat, and that will be our indication to reach out to you and schedule something. So I'll just jump in there because I forgot to mention it. I just want to thank Lindsay and Aviv for another great presentation. I think that's a super insightful introduction, a very light introduction into how you can improve efficiency and timeliness of TMF filing. Again, if anybody is interested in seeing how their use case, how they would use the system, write "I'm interested" in the chat. We'll some folks reach out to you and schedule that one-on-one, more personalized session for Aviv and Lindsay to run. With that, I'll close the session for today. I'll remind everybody that we do have a networking break right after this. So if you guys have time and are interested in chatting with Aviv, with Lindsay, with others, with myself, we're going to be in the lounge. You can come and chat with us, and we will speak with you there. And I guess we'll see you in the next session later on, which is our last session for the day, a panel focused on improving oversight and quality in a decentralized clinical trial environment. With that, I'll close it for today. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.